To the Indonesia Project's COVID-19 webinar series. My name is Arianto Patunru, and I'm hosting this event with Nur Kamala Mulyani and Baskara Adiwena. We acknowledge and celebrate the first Australians and pay our respect to the elders, past and present. We are grateful for the support from the Australian National University and the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So today we have distinguished speakers, my colleagues from LPEM University of Indonesia. They're going to talk about COVID-19 recovery in Indonesia, Build Back Better. So the speakers are Dr. Alin Halimatussadiah. She is now the head of the Environmental Economics Research Group at LPEM, Universitas Indonesia, that is Institute for Economic and Social Research. And together with Teuku Riefky, one of the staff, one of the researchers at LPEM. So this, I think, is part of a series of studies that LPEM has been doing covering the pandemic and economic recovery in Indonesia. So without further ado, let me invite Alin to start her presentation. Silakan, Alin.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Aco. I will share my screen. Okay. Hello, everyone. It's nice to have this opportunity to share our study conducted by LPEM on sustainable economic recovery from COVID-19 for Indonesia. Me and my colleague, Teuku Riefky, will present this. We conduct this study since, I think, May this year, and we still want to continue the study by detailing what we found so far in this first phase study. So this is the framework of our study. First, we conduct what's so-called baseline study. Basically, we want to understand the impact of COVID-19 pandemic to economic, social, and environment, and what the government responds to the situation. And the second one, we try to list available instrument related to sustainability, what kind of sustainability instrument that can be put in our recovery agenda. After understanding this baseline and sustainability instrument, we identify the main recommendation that we will make the detailing of this in our further research. We have planned to publish our study in a book, joint collaboration with Bappenas. Hopefully, this book will be launched in December this year. I will give opportunity to my colleague Riefky to present this first part. Please, Riefky, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bu Alin. Thank you, Pak Aco. Okay, so for this morning presentation, we're gonna start at the COVID impact on the global level. So we know that this pandemic is a pandemic like never before. This is a pandemic that has brought the crisis that touch upon all the aspects of human life. So it's not only on the health aspect, but it also touch upon on the economic and social aspect. There have been so many research by many prominent institutions that stated that the impact of this pandemic is so severe. First of all, we could look at the health aspect, that the global health catastrophe brought by this COVID-19 already brought a death toll to around 1.4 million of people. That has already infected 55 million cases since the start of 2020. And then not only on the health aspect, since the economic activity is disrupted massively, this also brought a severe economic impact. By the World Bank estimation, this pandemic contracting the world economic growth by 5.2%. And as we've seen by now, the pandemic that we thought before would only prolong for, I don't know, like few months or like half of a year. It's still going on. So there's been this thinking that this pandemic could stay for a longer time, and it might have a potential double hit scenario on the economy level, not only on the regional level, but also impact on the global level. And next. So we try to understand how this COVID-19 affect the global economy. In this research, we try to conduct a general equilibrium experiment to understand how this COVID-19 would impact the economic around the world. We've seen that almost all the countries in the world got infected by the COVID-19, uh, and it affect the health of the people uniformly. So there is no country that hasn't been impacted in the health sector and the economic sector. So in this simulation, in this study, we try to see how Indonesia is doing uh, in this crisis. So we can see in the left chart, we try to simulate how COVID-19 affect the global economy. So we can see that Indonesia is not among the worst performer, but we're not also doing great as well. So we're somehow in the middle of the country, and it really depends on how we actually manage the health crisis. And also because this is the crisis that is really unprecedented, all the countries around the world are employing a massive fiscal stimulus. But as we know that many countries, especially developing countries, they don't really have the privilege of a ample fiscal space. Even without the crisis, developing countries tend to not have a fiscal space that is quite spacious. So there's a certain limit to how much developing countries can employ a fiscal stimulus. But with all we have, Indonesia is not actually giving a limited fiscal stimulus. As we can see on the right chart, we actually quite putting a rather significant stimulus compared to other countries. We're not giving a stimulus that counted to around say 10% of GDP, but we give a stimulus that is quite bigger than several countries such as Malaysia, Philippines, and China. And as we can see on our simulation, we can see that the stimulus, especially fiscal stimulus given by the government, is quite effective to hamper the negative effect of the COVID-19. So when we observe on the national level, on the domestic level, as we can see in this slide, the COVID-19 crisis shocked the economic sector differently. So as we can see, based on our simulation, we can see that the sectors that has a close proximity or rely on human interaction would impacted the most by this COVID-19. As we can see, several sectors such as restaurant and hotel, recreation, tourism, and manufacturing are among the worst impacted sector. And as we can also see, a sector which a relatively low proximity between workers are not severely impacted relatively compared to other sectors, such as mining and quarrying and agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. But in this simulation, we could also see that the fiscal stimulus that has been employed by the government is rather effective to hamper the negative effect on a sector, especially restaurant and hotel and recreation and tourism, which severely impacted by this COVID-19. Moreover, besides observing the sectoral level, we also try to simulate the impact of COVID-19 on domestic level, on a regional level. So as we can see, as COVID-19 is spreading more quickly in the area with higher density, each region in Indonesia that has put social distancing measure is would be affected in a region that has a close proximity between people, and the sector that relies on population mobility. So in this simulation, we can see that all the regions in Java are among the most severe impacted region in Indonesia, along with Bali that relies heavily on tourism. So this somehow telling a story that how this COVID-19 is impact each region differently. And as we know that as Java counted for around 60% of the national economy, it is expected that Java would be impacted the most by this crisis. As I said before, COVID-19 not only touch upon the health aspect of human life, but also economical aspect and social aspect. And one of the social indicators that we observe deeply in the study is poverty rate. So as we've seen before, that this COVID-19 affect all the sectors and regions differently. And as Indonesia is a very broad nation with very various sectoral, we can see that each region in Indonesia relies on a different sector. And because of the COVID-19 affect each sector and regions differently, we can also see that the changes in poverty rate is also quite different from one region to each other. So as we can see that as Java, as most of the agriculture land is in Java and Papua, we could see that the poverty rate is changing the most in Java, for example. And also in Sumatra, which they rely more on the wholesale and retail trade, they will be impacted the most on the poverty aspect in this sector. So this pandemic has brought a very
Sorry,
variety
Riefky.
impact. Yep.
In this
Yes,
chart,
Pacho.
the colors
Yep.
only show the sectors, the dominant sectors in the provinces. Maybe not the change in poverty rate, or is it on the next slide? Or
So okay, this chart is showing which sector in each region has the highest change in poverty rate, Pacho.
Okay.
So as we know that probably in West Java, for example, the main contributor is not actually agriculture, but the highest change in poverty rate in West Java is actually on the agriculture sector.
Okay.
Probably due
Thanks.
to lower purchasing power, overall purchasing power. So that's actually what this slide tells us. Thank you, Pacho, for the question. Next. Okay, so before we've seen the impact of COVID-19 on a poverty aspect. Next, there are numerous studies as well that observes how the COVID-19 Indonesia would affect inequality. Before the COVID-19 hits Indonesia, we've seen for quite a while that we kind of have improvement in inequality aspect. However, founding by BPS in 2020, earlier on this pandemic took place, is that the 40% of the poorest population in Indonesia is actually contributing only to 70.7% of total spending. And another study by Smeru found that the average change per capita household is quite severe, around 6.1% of contraction. and the poorest percentile of the population also hit the most, with the decline of 9 around until 12% of decline in expenditure. So this kind of tells the same story with the poverty, that inequality is worsening due to this COVID-19. Next. Okay, so we've seen the impact on poverty and inequality, and we've also known that the unemployment is rising like never before, not only in Indonesia, also in other developing countries and also in developed countries. This crisis is a health crisis that needs to be contained with limiting economic activity, with business activity, with human interaction. So with people who's working on informal sectors and people who relies on day-to-day daily check, they're the most impacted due to this pandemic. They lost their income. Even most of the manufacturers and big business are downsizing their production. And several institutions already did the survey about this employment aspect. And for example, BPS found that 22.7% of respondents are not working now, and 2.52% are already laid off. This survey was conducted early on during this pandemic took place, and we expect that this number is already substantially higher by now. Next. Okay, so we've already seen how this COVID-19 impacted Indonesia on both on regional level and on sectoral level, and we've also already summarized its impact on social aspects such as poverty, inequality, and unemployment. But how are we really doing on a global level? Are we doing okay, or are we kind of left behind on this management of crisis? So we've quoted one study by Luhan Academy, which tracked how each countries in the world are doing in managing the health crisis. So as of the latest data that we gather, most of the countries in the world are already on the recovery phase. So they're not anymore struggling on how to contain the virus anymore. They're already talking about how we gonna recover the economy after we relatively successful in containing the pandemic. But Indonesia is not there yet. As you can see in this slide, we're still colored red, meaning that we're still on the true phase. We're still struggling to fight the pandemic. We're still managing to contain the virus. So we're not on the phase of we can actually seriously talking about how we gonna recover the economy, how we gonna rebound our GDP growth and so on. But, we still need to focus on how we do the containment measure to actually limit the virus spread. But this is a common phenomena on big countries. As we can see, big countries is also struggling to actually getting past this true phase to actually enter the recovery phase. So how actually the relationship between the true and recovery phase and the economic impact? We also quote the same study that in this chart we took the plot of the relationship between economic loss and health loss. This chart is divided into 4 quadrants, and most of the country are concentrated either on the upper left quadrant or right lower quadrant. Meaning that most of the countries who are doing well in containing the virus, or the country who has a low death per million rate, is also having a low economic loss. So the scale is that the lower on its scale, it has a worse economic loss, and the more to the right on the scale, it has a more debt to per million people. So the country with a low debt per million people also have a limited economic loss. And a country with a high debt rate per million people also having a quite severe economic loss. uh, we are doing not so well, but not so bad either. We are somehow in the borderline between a upper left quadrant and a lower right quadrant. And this is the fight that hasn't finished yet. If we are losing focus, it has a big opportunity for Indonesia to actually fall into the category of countries in the right lower quadrant. So it means that a economic recovery and health recovery is not something separated. The previous chart shows that no, there is a very limited countries, or it's a very rare case that we have a mild economic loss with a high debt per million people. So in a sense, health management or health recovery or health aspect policy is somehow also an economic policy. There is no way that we can have a economic recovery without the recovery in the health sector. Next. So having said that, how is our government allocating their stimulus to help us survive in this pandemic? So mainly, Indonesian government has employed a massive national economic recovery plan, which support the health sector and the business sector, especially MSME and people with low income. As we know that around 20% of Indonesian population is fall into poverty category due to this pandemic. So the government of Indonesia also employ quite a generous support for social protection, which accounted around a third of the total program of national economic recovery or stimulus plan. Next. Okay, so the social protection in itself is among the stimulus budget that has a relatively high realization to this date. It accounted to almost 50% of the realization, far better than the support for health, business incentive, and support for a state-owned government. However, the realization in itself still has several challenges or problems. The major one is the inclusion and exclusion error, as we don't really have a good data management on which people or which population that are worth to actually receive the social assistance. Also, another challenge is administration and implementation, also data validation, and also budget realization. The government is doing well, but they need to keep their focus on, because we still don't see any uh, any recovery in the near future. We don't really see that the pandemic will end in the near future. So the government needs to put their focus on one of the main agenda is on social protection, because this is the post of allocation that impacted so many population. Not only people who get affected by the virus, but also for the people who lost their job and get a less income during this pandemic. For the next section, Bu Alin will present the rest of the presentation. The floor is yours, Bu Alin.
Okay, thank you, Riefky. I will continue the presentation. What I want to discuss is how to put a sustainability agenda in our economic recovery plan, putting this tagline of sustainable recovery, restart, and build back better. Study of Vivid Economics shows that many countries has proceed this stimulus program. But if we evaluate on the greenness of the stimulus index, we can see this graph, among those countries assessed, Indonesia, we can conclude that Indonesia stimulus program contribute more negatively to the environment rather than positively contribution to the environment. So this from this graph, we can evaluate whether we still have a chance to put this sustainability agenda, greening the stimulus to make the sustainable impact to the economy. So why this sustainable recovery important for Indonesia? First, in this study, we assess the risk of the pandemic impact to SDGs achievement target. So if we evaluate from each goal, which goal has more risk because of this pandemic impact, and we see almost all the SDGs goal has this risk. So we kind of set back to achieve our SDGs target. The next one is we see many countries follow sustainable pathways in their recovery plan, such as Korea, Canada, and most of countries in Western Europe. And I think we should follow them in some ways. The third one is as this pandemic affect our fiscal balance, and we need money to finance them, and most of the financing comes from debt. I think we have this responsibility for our future generation as we borrow money from them, so they will make the repayment of our debt. And the last one is sustainable recovery is important to mitigate future losses. Take example of disaster. Most of people and infrastructure located in disaster-prone area, and we also know Indonesia is countries with that is vulnerable to climate change impact. Study by Hepburn shows that from the typical stimulus program, actually we can map on the impact or on their impact to long-run economic multiplier and potential climate impact. Some of them can achieve both long-run economic multiplier and also climate impact positively, but some cannot achieve that. So what we should do is we can evaluate our program and choose the appropriate one, which instrument can achieve these both outcomes. This is our main recommendation from our understanding from the baseline condition and also in sustainability instrument available. First is what sectors should be prioritized, and then how to promote employment. The next one is, can we get the additional benefit from the cash transfer, not only for solve as the social safety net, but also to achieve environmental improvement. The next one is, as we see this loan support have this big portion on the stimulus, can we make this loan support impactful? The next one is how to manage budget sustainably. The next one is about program delivery. Can we deliver the program with smart, fast, and efficient? And the next one is how the government can put the agenda in appropriate way based on the timeline. What is what kind of activity that is urgent and it can be put in medium or long term. The first one is about prioritized sector. So we discussed with several experts, and we conclude this. These 6 things is we think these sectors the government has to pay attention and maybe look at the sectoral policy, how to support this. First is sustainable agriculture, both to support food security and also energy security, like oil palm. Oil palm now not only have the role for food, but also for energy security through the biodiesel program. The next one is the opportunity to upscaling or developing low-tech medical equipment as well as pharmaceutical product, including herbal. And this herbal maybe can be related to social forestry. We have this underachievement in social forestry target, particularly how to exploit this non-timber product. And then the next one is how to promote cleaner energy mix. Yeah, as we know in the NDC, these energy sectors become the second largest sector that we depend on to reduce our greenhouse gas emission. And from study also, we found that these sectors can employ also many people. And the next one, how to promote sustainable ocean economy. As we know, this high poverty rate not only happen in agriculture sector, but also fisheries sector. So the agenda is how to make the benefit from the ocean can be sustainable by managing it sustainably, and also increase the value chain of this value added of this sector. The next one, we also concern on the infrastructure project. As we know, Joko Widodo, I have this national strategic plan to build many infrastructure project. And I think this is time for us to evaluate this infrastructure project, what kind of project that actually it's not urgent now, and how we can tweak that to be more green. Yeah? So we some kind of building in green infrastructure. First is sustainable waste management. We have difficulties in building our waste to energy. We have two presidential decree to support this, but the development is not is not there yet. Yeah. And then the next one is water and sanitation. Many people underserved in this sector. And the third one related to education, ICT infrastructure, also important to promote equitable education as well as to promote local economic growth. The next one is to promote public transportation and open public space. The next one is peatland restoration, particularly these days where the mandate of the BRG will be ended in the near future, but we still have challenge in this peatland management. The next one is polluted river. It will affect the water security and also the marine litter problem. And the last one is how to build this climate and disaster resilience infrastructure. We know that most of the infrastructure located in disaster prone area. And then we need to evaluate also this mega project. We identify two mega project, mega RES project and biodiesel program. The idea is how to manage this risk. Yeah, we can still move on this project, but there are risks that has to be mitigated, such as do we need actually like 1 million hectares for mega RES project, and how about increasing productivity from the farmers? For biodiesel program, the problem is the government has this unclear target, whether we want to achieve like B30, B40, B50, or B100, and how we can mitigate the impact to land expansion to meet these domestic needs. The second one is how to promote employment. The idea is to stimulate the demand side and also the supply side. The demand side from the business sector and the supply side, the capacity of the workers to be absorbed in the market, and also how to make them become more flexible to enter new sectors, because this pandemic maybe will change our economic structure, such as the lower portion of tourism, maybe it will change to another sectors. And the government has this Kartu Prakerja program, and this program is actually not too well designed, but we see this program is a good program and many room for improvement, such as refine the eligibility, who will who should get the benefit from this program. We also need comprehensive database system. We need broaden the means of getting the training, not only online but also offline. And the most important thing is to build some kind of platform for employment placement after the training. The next one is how to get a double dividend or multiple benefit from this cash transfer, not only for safety net but also environmental benefit. How to do that? We can put conditionality on the cash transfer, such as asking the household to not conducting illegal logging, illegal fishing, and doing better waste management at household level. This cash transfer actually not only for household, but we can apply also for the village fund transfer. The next one is how to make the loan support impactful. So the portion of the stimulus for loan support, particularly for SMEs, is quite large, and we can actually put another agenda in this loan support, such as prioritizing the loan to green sectors, and we should make better assessment for environmental and social risk for the proposal, credit proposal, and then how to promote value chain inclusivity to make this local economic growth. And then also we should choose these sectors with high employment impact. Actually, this is in line with the Indonesia Sustainable Finance Roadmap that has been issued in 2014. And then about this budget, how to make this budget sustainably, we can see from the government revenue, we now have a lower government revenue because lower economic activity, but we still have this opportunity to take this tax from resource-based sectors, and also some kind of sin tax like cigarette excise. Yeah. So based on our rough estimation, actually we can accumulate until it's reached 86 trillion from these sectors. And then from the government spending side, we should have this spending better condition, remove all unnecessary spending, including unnecessary subsidy, particularly for fossil fuels. And then to finance other needs, we have to identify and implement innovative financing instruments such as sovereign wealth fund, debt for climate swap, direct green financing, and social bonds. And we still have to identify which one is most appropriate for each program. At the local level, actually the challenge is much more, because the local government has a more limited option to finance their budget. Yeah, so for this innovative financing will be more relevant for them. The next one is how to deliver the program smart, fast, and efficient way, looking at the low budget realization of the stimulus. Yeah, and what we can do is to invest in building a good database, and then improvement in the system, delivery system, and also we have to invest in monitoring and evaluation. And all of this activity actually, we can see this as employment creation, particularly for a medium skilled worker. And the last one is facing strategies for short term, medium term, and long term. The most urgent one is how to evaluate or looking back at all the stimulus program, and then how to align the commitment of sustainability in this stimulus program. And the medium term, how to mobilize all stakeholders to walk in the same path and internalizing the sustainability agenda, and hopefully in the long term we can implement this policy to achieve this SDGs target. Yeah, I think that's all from us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Alin and Riefky. It's wonderful presentations. And we now go to question and answer. If you can unshare your screen so we can see each other.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. But let me kick off the discussion by one comment, if you don't mind. So, while listening to your presentation, I remember this suggestion given by economist Raghuram Rajan to Indian government. He said that we should be careful in dealing with the recovery, and what he was suggesting is the 3 R's. And these 3 R's are relief, recovery, and reform, in that order. But of course, I also sympathize with your view that reform should be, you seem to be in the view that if we can do reform, why not, right? So what is your comment about, as Riefky said, we cannot see the finish line yet, so we need to be really vigilant in terms of health. But the other parts of the presentation are suggesting like very big, bold reform in many aspects. So what is your take on that? And before you answer, maybe let's have questions from the audience. I see hand raised from Pak Budi, Rudi Subarudi, and then Yogi wrote a question in Q&A. So let me invite first Pak Budi and then Rudi. Mas Budi, you're on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pak Aco. So my question is related to this undang-undang omnibus law. What is it? Undang-undang apa?
Cipta Kerja.
Cipta Kerja. Kelihatannya, it seems to me that the government is going to use this omnibus law or undang-undang Cipta Kerja as the main tool for recovery, with the argument of, okay, this will attract investment and so on. However, there is a condition or some aspect in the omnibus law which actually relaxing the protection on the environment, such as the weight on who actually got a power deciding the property right of a certain area has been shifted a lot toward central government. So what is your comment related to this aspect that the government would like to use omnibus law as the main tool to push the economy, in which that law do not really protect environmental condition in Indonesia?
Okay, thanks Mas Budi. The next question is by Pak Rudi. Silahkan Pak Rudi. Pak Rudi Subarudi. Or maybe not. So let's move. One more question, Alin, if you don't mind, Riefky. So Yogi, do you want to ask your question directly? Okay.
I don't like to.
Okay, I'll read Yogi's question. The question is, so far, how good or what is the proportion from the 600 trillion rupiah is the dissemination of the, how good is the dissemination of the recovery fund? Whether the fund also needs to be distributed to the regional spending, i.e. provincial and district as well. So over to you, Alin and Riefky, to address some of these questions.
Yeah.
Alin?
Yeah. So So I will address all these three questions first, and then maybe Riefky can add more. First is from Mas Aco, yeah, about this reform. Yes, this is an interesting question, and yeah, we can see that in Indonesia, the implementation of the program is, we have some kind of rigid phase, yeah, rigid phase from the planning, budgeting, and implementing the program. So I think we need to think more, some kind of setting the long-term goals now, rather than thinking about what we should do next later. Yeah, so setting this agenda today is important while we fighting this COVID. We also have to think about what we should do, yeah, because of this rigidity in the budgeting process and also this planning, yeah. So
Sure.
this is my suggestion. And then for Pak Budi, I always, have difficulties in in answering this, yeah, because yeah, we know that we need to reduce our high cost economy, yeah, by yeah by giving more, what is called, easiness to the business to operate, yeah, but also we concern on this environment. And actually from this environmental permit, yeah, there is tendency that the business think that this permission regarding to the environment is so long, uncertain, and also difficult. And we can see so far, although we have this AMDAL thing, yeah, and then other kind of permission, the negative impact is still there, yeah. So actually, what is lacking is the enforcement, yeah. I don't know the equilibrium of this, how we can make the business going easy, and also the environmental permission is, it's not that hard, yeah, but credible, yeah. So the AMDAL is credible, for example, and also we have another issue in property right, yeah. But what we have to strengthen more is this in the enforcement. I cannot answer comprehensively this issue since I still searching for the answer myself. Yeah. For Yogi, dissemination of this recovery fund, maybe Riefky can answer this. I don't know how massive this dissemination is, but what I know is the government, central government, has allocated budget to give this, add more this fiscal transfer to the region, but I don't know the magnitude. Maybe Riefky can answer this, and how it is equally distributed. And also for the local government, the PT SME also can lend money. But it is like a bank, so it will assess the fiscal capacity in the future, whether they have this capacity to repay this debt. Yeah, but I don't think many district or province can have this capacity. Yeah, yeah. So I think it's still challenging for this local government to recover their budget balance, fiscal balance. Yeah. Is there another more? I think this, or these three,
Yeah.
just these three questions. Yeah. Maybe
Yeah,
Riefky
maybe
can
Riefky has something to add. Riefky?
more.
Okay, perhaps I will add more first on Mr. Yogi's question regarding the dissemination of the recovery fund. So it's actually rather difficult to assess how good one stimulus plan is actually doing, since the condition is evolving at a rapid pace. But so far, from my point of view, the government has set their priorities right, in the sense that the government is putting their focus first on supporting for social protection and consumptions, especially in terms of dissemination. And also, government also put quite a generous amount to support MSME. So I think with this priority, they already set their priorities quite right. And since this crisis is always evolving, the government needs always to put their focus at its highest level, and their monitoring and evaluation program should be assessed on a more frequent basis. So the government should always, assess which kind of or which aspect of this stimulus is not effective and which one is effective. So they know which one to be more prioritized or put more money on. But so far, I think they are doing good. But the question remains is that how long they could keep this focus, since the crisis is already happening for more than half a year, and the budget of the government is getting thinner. And the big question is what will the government do is if the crisis is prolonged? What if the situation is not getting better in the next year? How the government will compensate and support the poorest population? That's the things that remain to be seen. But I think the government should always put that as their first priority, not on the growth of the economy on quarterly basis, but how much the people could still maintain their subsistence demand. So I think judging by that indicator, so far our government is doing pretty well. And to answer another question regarding the regional spending, I'm not sure about the answer whether the fund also need to be distributed to the regional spending, but I do think that the coordination between the central government and regional government is of utmost importance, in a sense that regional government knows better about which of their population should be supported more in terms of daily needs. And probably central government might not have the best knowledge regarding which population should be supported the most. This is the gap that the regional government should step in to bridge between the stimulus funded by central government to actually reach the people who is in the most need of that. Probably that's what I can add to the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Riefky. Next, I have Catherine Robinson, Gita Putri, also in written questions, Lydia Napitupulu and Adrian Karim Januar. So let me ask first Ibu Katie if she wants to ask her question directly, Ibu.
Oh, you can read it for me?
Oh, I can read it for you. Okay. So Ibu Katie's question is, how has COVID impacted on Indonesia's progress towards achieving SDGs, and how will this impact on recovery? And in particular, can the panelists comment on impacts, positive or negative, on gender equity? That's from Ibu Katie, and let's invite Gita to ask her question. Silakan, Gita.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gita Putri Damayana from the Indonesia Center for Law and Policy Studies. Thank you, everyone, for your presentation. And my question would be quite similar to Mas Budi's question regarding the new Omnibus Law. As from what we know, the Omnibus Law is relaxing the obligation we used to have in the environmental law. And relating to the presentation, are we going to have future infrastructure project dealing to rehabilitate the environment? So instead of building more airports and toll road, the infrastructure project after the Omnibus Law is more dealing to address the environment issue caused by the implementation of the Omnibus Law. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gita. So the question from Lydia is related to the Greenness Index. So she asked if you can elaborate more on what variables included in this so-called Greenness Index, whether it is fair to compare Indonesia with EU countries, or maybe it's better to compare us with India, for example. And the last question from Pa Adrian is having to do with green financing. Do you see business involvement in green financing, and what is the interest there? So back to you, Alin and Riefky. You are on mute, Alin.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you for all of this interesting question. First is about the, I think from Catherine, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Catherine. So we have mapped this, how this COVID-19 impact Indonesia's SDGs target from each goal, such as no poverty, zero hunger, and then, for this gender equality, we see that this pandemic can impact more to woman worker rather than male worker first, and then this the whole thing about work from home type can impact working mothers rather than working fathers. Yeah. So I think woman has more burden in this situation rather than men, maybe like that. For other kind of SDGs target that is impacted, I think I can just send you additional PowerPoint about these ways. For example, we have these medical ways and about this climate and others here. Thank you for the question. And the next one is from, I think, Mbak Lydia, yeah, about the vivid economics, yeah. So this is a green, yeah. So what we raised today, the issue is sustainable, not only the environment, but also the social, but this greenness is mainly about the environment. And they have several indicators. In the PowerPoint, I put the link of this publication. And for example, they look at this corporate bailout that is typically given, yeah, in many countries, whether this corporate bailout incorporate green commitment. Yeah, for example, when the French government give bailout to Air France, they put in the covenant the commitment of this Air France to reduce emissions, some kind of that, because this is like support from the public, yeah, to the private, yeah, but we need to put more impact on this support rather than just making the business recover again. And then, it also include like green R&D subsidies, and then loan and grants for green investment. They have like, I think, six indicators here. Reinforcing environmental regulation, yeah, some kind of that. Yeah, you can see from the link that I give in the PowerPoint. And then the next one is about green financing, yeah, green financing. So as I said before, Indonesia has set this sustainable finance roadmap in 2014. At the beginning, the development is not that good, yeah, because no regulation put in place. But since 2017, the OJK, Financial Service Authority, has released this POJK related how to implement this sustainable finance, and now we have these first mover banks that commit to implement this. But the problem is, you know, these green sectors is actually not as attractive as the brown sectors. So it needs more support. Yeah, it needs more support to make the preference of these financial sectors move to these green sectors. But I think now the development is quite progressive in this. So these private sectors also look this as profitable, yeah. At least the NPV is more than zero. So they have this the option, yeah, to mix their portfolio. So they have these brown and also green sectors, yeah. And for several renewable energy sectors, for example, they can also find the prospect sectors, yeah, not only the coal-fired power plant, and also the sustainable agriculture, yeah. But the development is still has to be enhanced, yeah, more through the sectoral policies. So I think what we need now is the sectoral policy, and also maybe a little of fiscal incentive to promote these green sectors, so the financial sectors want to comes in. The next one is about infrastructure, yeah. I try to understand the question, but I think it is about whether the current infrastructure project has this environmental and social risk, yeah. Yeah, so during this situation, I think the government has to reevaluate the plan. For example, the government has want to build like toll road or the airport, yeah. Yeah, so do we need that much or with that capacity, yeah. So if we have evaluated that, maybe we can switch some portion to other green infrastructure, yeah. Particularly what we need now is climate and disaster resilient infrastructure, yeah. There is, I think, underprovided, yeah, in Indonesia, yeah. Yeah, I think that's all.
Okay.
Maybe Riefky can add.
Any additional comments,
Okay,
Riefky?
No, thank you, Pak Aceh. Thank you, Bu Alin.
Okay.
I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Let's take other questions. There's this interesting question from Dimitri Narashita in regard with your discussion about conditionalities on cash transfer program. So she asked whether we can extend this type of conditionalities to business, seeing them as also beneficiaries of incentives, COVID or otherwise, and also because the scope of the current environmental degradation is bigger than individuals or household, than from individuals or households. So do you think it's possible to extend some kind of conditionalities for businesses as well? That's one question from Dimitri Narashita. Next one, there's a question from D3, but let me ask D3 if she wants to address her question directly. D3, are you there?
Mbak D3.
Hi. Hi,
Nice
everyone.
to meet you again, D3.
Yes, it's good to be here. Thank you for the excellent presentation. I just wanted to have a very quick answer regarding the brown sectors you mentioned, Alin. How should the government best assess policies in these sectors as to whether or not they will be counterproductive to sustainable recovery, especially in the medium and long term? For example, the downstreaming incentive that was laid out in the omnibus law for the coal industry. I mean, to me, they seem very counterproductive, but you know, how should the government best address this in order for the entire recovery to fit to the sustainable recovery paradigm?
Thanks, D3. And let me read the last question, and that is from Pak Bram Sarjana. I understand from the presenter that the pandemic might likely change our economic structure, mainly to tourism. How do you think the region that already depends their economy highly on tourism should cope with this situation? For example, Bali. Okay, so those are, I think this is the last round, and I'll give it over to Alin and Riefky. Silakan, Alin.
Yeah. Thank you, Mas Ajo, and for all the question for the Maitri, yeah, about the conditionality. I think it is possible, yeah, and actually it is harder for household, yeah. Maybe it is easier for business, yeah, because we have this, if we give credits, we have this covenant, yeah. And in sustainable finance, actually, one of the instrument that is promoted is to put the environmental management plan in the covenant. If we give credits, the environmental management plan become the attachment, yeah. And then this is binding to the contract. And yeah, we can put that actually as additional feature of this covenant. Yeah, it is maybe more simple than putting conditionality to household. How to monitor that? Yeah, it is more simple. But yeah, as we know that it is more simple for giving this conditionality to big firms rather than small like SMEs. Yeah, because the hard one is mainly monitoring and evaluation.
Alin,
Yeah.
can I be a bit provocative on that issue?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is this news coverage in The Economist last week about the situation in UK, right? So the criticism from The Economist magazine is that the government in UK should not give too much attention to business, for the relief fund, but to household, to families. Because if we give too much funding, too much money for businesses, whoever they are, we might create zombie firms. Some firms, some business who are likely, might be already weak and unproductive, but because of this COVID funding, they're still alive, so zombie, right?
Yeah.
So rather than saving this weak or unproductive business, why not save the households directly so the household members can find jobs? So the focus is income saving, not certain types of jobs, because crisis might create what Schumpeter said, creative destruction, right? So focusing on households is much more important than focusing on business. What do you think?
Yeah, so the problem is if we want to promote like employment, we have to induce both the demand side and the supply side. And how we can create employment if the demand side is not, induced? Yeah, I don't know how to do that, but I think what we should find is the optimal portion. Yeah, the optimal portion.
Sure.
In the PAN program, we see that the percentage budget allocated from this for safety net is, I think, quite the same with the SMEs. Yeah, and we know that many workers in Indonesia depend on these SMEs, and you know what, maybe I don't know, yeah, to mitigate these zombie firms or zombie small firms, I think there are ways or instruments in this financing institution to put this risk. Yeah, for example, the problem of the in delivering this loan support is we don't have a good data on SMEs, right? But if, for example, they can prove that this business has been established since when, yeah, and then we have this confidence to finance them, maybe we can put like more cap to the business that is, I don't know, we don't know any information on this business when it started. Yeah. So how this financial institution can put that kind of risk in giving this loan support. I think we have this instrument if we want to. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. And then about the, I don't know, the next one is about the tourism. Yeah. 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 Bali is, yeah. It hits this pandemic hits Bali very severe. Yeah. And yeah, what we should do is looking at this backup sector, yeah, backup sector, and whether we can upscale this. The problem is how fast we can, switch to another sectors, and still maybe we can, if we can, we have to prepare also when the economic grows again, the tourists will come back. Yeah, so the problem is how this employment can be flexible, and then the stimulus can go to the sector that is fast recovery in giving these prioritize sectors. Actually, the World Bank has this kind of criteria on what sector should be prioritized. And one of the criteria is timeliness, whether it can recover fast or not. So I think we should look at these potential sectors, yeah, to be the safety net from this condition. Yeah. And then I don't know, from Mbak Ditri, this is a big question. Yeah, I don't know how to answer this. Yeah,
maybe Riefky.
Yeah, because maybe Riefky. Yeah, I don't know. This is a big question. Yeah, the problem is I never read that omnibus law. Actually, this is very a document. I never read it.
No one blames you, Alin. It keeps changing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, this is the problem.
Okay, Riefky maybe have some comment.
Okay, probably I would like to add a little bit more on Pak Acho's comment regarding the zombie company. It is actually an interesting discussion about how the government should put their monies on. That article from The Economist is also in line with what Raghuram Rajan said in, I think it was in Project Syndicate last month. He actually a proponent of not letting the zombie company afloat, in the sense that he argues that why don't we just let the inefficient business go to bankruptcy, and after that we're gonna cover all the unemployed people. Because like he said that all the business will come and go, right? Like the florist near your home will come again once the demand recover. But when you actually put the money on the business, it kind of give a certain degree of moral hazard. And it also, there are also big companies out there that are way too inefficient even before the pandemic, and they use this as quote unquote an excuse to get a government support. This is actually an expensive support from the government to actually support a business. So he argues that if we actually try to focus more on the people, we're gonna get the benefit of not having more inefficient business after the pandemic. We're gonna be left with the most efficient one. And the people who actually lost their income will still have their basic needs, and they will get jobs again in a company that has more profit.
And new
in
jobs,
the future.
new kind of jobs will be appearing.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So we're gonna have a more efficient business activity in the future, and in a way, this is a once in a lifetime quote unquote opportunity to actually lay out so many inefficient firms. So that is my take is that is an interesting point of view, and it does make a lot of economic sense. But when we talk about government support, it also has some of political dimension, political realm. So it's not always about the economics, and it might have some other pressure other than economic aspects. So I do, and I don't actually understand how that might escalate if we don't actually take into account the political aspect. So it's a really hard question to ask, but in theory I agree with what Raghuram Rajan said, and Pak Acho's comment, and also the Economist article. It's actually a really simple way to have significant increase in efficiency in the future. So I think that's the thing that I would comment on. Regarding the omnibus law, I think I don't really have much to add other than what Bu Alin have already said, because like it's all out there. Because when we talk about omnibus law, the main argument of the government is to actually have a strong business climate once we get to the recovery phase. And it's in theory is good and all, but we don't know how these things might escalate. Because like I think the things with omnibus law is the devil is in the details, right? So the implementation is the key, and other than the aspect of a environmental and land permit and all, I'm not going to comment on that because I think Bu Alin already put enough on that. But I think this is people needs to understand omnibus law in its proportion. It's not something that would solve all the problem. It might solve some of the problem, and it might lead us to a more progressive way of growing the economy. But we need to be very critical about this. We need to always put focus on this because what it is promised is huge. So we have to actually take this into in a very objective manner. So I think that's all my comments.
Yeah, thank you, Riefky, Alin. I think because our time is limited today, so I'm going to end this session. I will have to, of course, thank Alin and Riefky again. Thank you for all the attendance, for your participation. Thank you for questions. Sorry for those whose questions are not answered today. So with that, I'll turn this over to Nuka to tell us what's coming in the next weeks. Over to you, Nuka.
Thank you, Acho, and thank you all presenters and participants. We will have a very interesting global seminar next week on a topic that we don't often hear or cover in the media. It's about the COVID-19 infodemic in Indonesia. We'll Ros Tapsel, Taufik Rahman from Jakarta Post, and Restu Diantina Putri from Tirto ID will be talking about the current media industry during COVID in Indonesia. We also will have a very last, for this year, global seminar, which would be the reflection and the way forward for on public health and government response and economy in Indonesia. And we will have Professor Tiki Pangestu from the National University of Singapore in conversation also with Dr. Khatib Basri and Dr. Titi Anas. Okay, and hope to see you again and the next 2 global seminars for this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Alin, Riefky.
Thank you, Pak Acho. Thank you, all the audience. Thank you, Pak Budi. Thank you, all the committee. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
I'm going to turn this off now.
Thank you.